Hello friends, welcome back. In this video we will learn about the center and the states relationship, giving importance to the financial relations between the center and the states. Before we go into the topic, please do subscribe to this channel. Before we go into the actual discussion of the topic, let's see the important headings that we are going to discuss under the financial relations between the center and the states. They include allocation of taxing powers, distribution of tax revenue, distribution of non-tax revenue, grant in aids to the state, finance commission, protection of state interests, borrowing by the center and the states, intergovernmental tax immunity, and effects of emergencies. Now going into the details, the Constitution of India follows the federal system of governance. Though India is not completely a federal structure, we are more inclined towards the federal system of governance. In this federal structure, the Constitution divided three types of powers between the center and the states, which include the legislative, executive, and the financial powers. But the Constitution excluded the judicial powers from dividing between the center and the states because we follow latest judicial system to put into force both the central and the state laws. Both the center and the states are supreme in their respective fields, but to bring balance and maximum coordination in them is important to make the federal system a success. That is the reason why our constitution contains different types of regulations to maintain the equilibrium between the center and the states. We already learned that the center and the state relations can be divided into three categories. They include the legislative relations, administrative relations, and the financial relations. In this video, we will learn more about the financial relations between the center and the states. The center and the states' financial relations are explained between Articles 268 and 293 in Part 12 of the Constitution. Among the many powers regarding financial relations between the center and the state, allocation of taxing power is one of them. The Constitution divides the power of tax between the center and the states in such a way as follows. When imposing taxes on the subjects that are present in the Union list, the exclusive power has been given to the Parliament, whereas the states are given exclusive power to levy taxes on the subjects that are present in the state list. When coming to the subjects in the concurrent list, both the Parliament and the state legislature can impose taxes. When coming to the subjects that are in the residuary list, that means those subjects that are not in any of these three lists, which include the union list, state list, and the concurrent list, for subjects in such residuary list, the power is given to the Parliament. By utilizing this provision, the Parliament has imposed the gift tax, wealth tax, and the expenditure tax. The Constitution also explains the difference between the power to impose a tax and collect a tax, and also the power to allocate the money that is collected from taxing. If we take for example, the income tax is imposed and collected by the center, but the money so collected by the income tax is distributed between both the center and the states. The Constitution has placed some restrictions on how the states can utilize their taxing powers. They include states can impose taxes on professions, trades, and employment, but the total amount of such taxes payable by any person should not exceed Rs 2,500 per annum. State legislature has the power to impose sales tax, which means imposing taxes on the sale or purchase of goods other than newspapers. But this power of the states has four restrictions, which include the states has no power to impose any tax on the sale or purchase that happened or taking place outside the states. Number 2 is the states don't have the power to impose a tax on the sale or purchase that is happening with respect to import or export. Number 3 includes if a sale or purchase is happening in regard to the interstate trade or commerce, states don't have the power to impose tax. Fourth one includes if some subjects or goods are declared to be of special importance by the Parliament in the links of interstate trade and commerce, any tax imposed on such sale or purchase of such goods It has certain restrictions and conditions that are specified by the Parliament and need to be followed by the centre and the states. State legislature has the power to impose tax on the consumption and the sale of electricity, but it has some restrictions. They include when the electricity sale or consumption is done for the purpose of centre, or when the electricity consumption is done for any construction or maintenance of the railway, or the electricity is sold to the centre or some railway company for the same purpose as that of maintaining a railway. In such cases, the state legislature do not have the power to impose tax on electricity consumption or sale. State legislature has the privilege to impose tax in respect to any type of water or electricity that is stored, generated or consumed and distributed and sold to any other authority that is established by the Parliament for the purpose of developing any interstate river or river valley. But to get such a privilege and to make such law, there needs to be the consideration of the President, and that law should get assent or acceptance from the President. Distribution of tax revenues. How are the tax revenues distributed? With the 80th Amendment took place in 2000 and the 88th Amendment that took place in 2003, major changes has been brought into the concept of how the taxes are distributed between the centre and the states. The 80th Amendment of 2000 was enacted to bring into force the 10th Finance Commission's recommendations. The 10th Finance Commission recommended that out of certain central taxes and duties that are being collected, 29% has to be given to the states, and this is known by the term alternative scheme of devolution. This scheme came into effect from April 1st, 1996. With this 80th Amendment, certain taxes like the corporation tax and the custom duties taxes, they came to the level of the income tax as long as their constitutionally mandated sharing with the states is concerned. Income tax is the tax on the income except that of agricultural income. By the 88th Amendment 2003, a new article was added to the Constitution, which is Article 268A. This article deals with the service tax. With this amendment, a new subject was also added to the Union list, which includes the entry 92C, that is the tax on services. Service tax is actually imposed by the centre, but the amount is collected and the shares of amount collected is being distributed between both the centre and the states. Let's see the position of the taxes after the two amendments, 80th Amendment 2000 and the 88th Amendment 2003. Under the Article 268, we will see the category of taxes that are imposed by the centre, but the amount collected is being utilized by the states. The taxes or duties that comes under this category include stamp duties on bills of exchange, checks, promissory notes, policy of insurance, transfer of shares and others. Also the excise duty on medicinal and toilet preparation that contains alcohol and narcotics. The amount collected by imposing a tax on these items does not go into the Consolidated Fund of India, but they are assigned to the state. The second category includes, under Article 268, the service tax that is imposed by the centre, but the amount collected is being utilized by both the centre and the states. The taxes on the services given or imposed by the centre. Amount so collected as well as the utilization of such service tax amount is being distributed between both the centre and the states. The principles of regulation guidelines on how to collect and utilize such funds that are being collected through service tax is decided by the Parliament. The next category of taxes include the taxes that are imposed and collected by the centre, but the amount is assigned to the states for utilization. It is under Article 269 of the Constitution of India. The taxes that fall under this category include the taxes on the sale or purchase of goods that happens in the course of interstate trade. In this, the newspapers are excluded. Also, the taxes on consignment of goods that happens in the course of interstate trade are included. The tax amount collected through this type of taxes does not go into the Consolidated Fund of India, but the amount is assigned to the concerned state for utilization as per the guidelines and principles given by the Parliament. The next category includes taxes that are mentioned under Article 270 of the Constitution, which are imposed and collected by the centre, but the amount is distributed between the centre and the states for utilization. All the taxes and duties that are mentioned in the union list falls under this category except those taxes that are mentioned in Article 268, 268A and 269, and also the surcharges on taxes and duties that are referred to in Article 271 are not included under this type of category of taxes. Also, any tax that is imposed for specific purposes is not included under this category of taxes, where the centre imposes and collects the tax but the amount is distributed between the centre and the states. In such types of taxes, the distribution of amount collected is decided by the President after the recommendations from the Finance Commission. The next category of tax is described under Article 271, which includes surcharge on certain taxes and duties for the purpose of the centre. On the taxes and duties that are mentioned under Article 269 and Article 270, the Parliament has the power to impose surcharge at any time. The amount so collected on the surcharges of these taxes will go exclusively to the centre, and the states don't get any share from such type of surcharges. The next category of taxes include the taxes imposed and collected and also utilized by the states. Duties or taxes that belong to the state exclusively. They are mentioned in the state list, which are 20 in number. They include the revenue on land, taxes on agricultural income, succession and state duties in respect to agricultural land, taxes on land and buildings, minerals, animals, boats and on road vehicles, and on luxuries, on entertainment and on gambling, excise duties on alcohol, liquids for human consumption and narcotics, taxes on the entry of goods into local area or advertisements except newspapers, on consumption of sale of electricity and on goods and passengers carried by road or inland water, taxes on professions, trades and employments not exceeding rupees 2,500 per annum, capitation taxes, tolls, stamp duty on documents except those specified in the union list, sales tax other than newspapers, and the fee on the subjects mentioned in the state list except that of the court fees. All the above mentioned comes under the category of taxes that are being imposed and collected and also utilized by the states. Moving on to the distribution of non-tax revenue. There are two types of distribution of non-tax revenues. They include between the centre and the states. Coming to the centre, the bills that are collected from the following forms the major source of non-tax revenue to the centre. They include the reserves or bills from the post and telegraph, railways, banking, broadcasting, coinage and currency, central public sector enterprises, and escheat and lapse. Escheat means when the owner of a property dies and there are no legal heirs to that owner, then that property comes under the control of the government or the centre. Whereas lapse means when the owner mentions a beneficiary to a property, and if the beneficiary dies early, the owner of the property comes back to the owner position. This is known as lapse. Coming to the states, the bills from the sources like irrigation, forest, fishery, state public sector enterprises, and escheat and lapse form the major source of non-tax revenue to the states. Now let's see the grant in aids to the states. Along with the tax sharing between the centre and the states, the Constitution has also provided to the states the privilege of grant in aid from the central resources. There are two types of grants to the states. They include the statutory grants and the discretionary grants. Statutory grants. The Parliament gets the power to make grants to the state under Article 275 of the Constitution. Not every state is provided with grant in aids. Only those states that are in need of financial assistance are given grants. There are two types of statutory grants. They include general grants and the specific grants. The general grants include giving financial assistance to the states which are in need, and not every state gets the grant. Also, different states will get different amount depending on the need of the financial assistance. This amount is charged under the Consolidated Fund of India every year. Apart from these general grants, there are specific grants provided by the Constitution for the welfare of the scheduled tribes in the states and for raising the level of administration in the scheduled areas in the states. The statutory grants under Article 275 are given to the states under the recommendations of the Finance Commission. Discretionary grants. Both the center and the states will get the power to give grants under Article 282 of the Constitution. These grants are made for the public purpose even though they are not in their respective legislative jurisdiction. The center uses this power to make grants to the states. Why are these grants are called discretionary? They are called discretionary grants because there is no obligation or any compulsion on the center to give grants to the states. The center can make grants to the states as per its choice. The center makes such type of grants to fulfill two types of purposes. One is to help the states to reach or fulfill its planned targets, and the next one is to get some benefit by helping the state and making it cooperate in the national plan and for the effective functioning of the system. In this way, both the center and the states are benefited at the same time. When compared to the statutory grants, discretionary grants form large parts of the central grants to the states. Other grants. Other than the statutory and the discretionary grants to the states, the center also provided for a third type of grant in aid, but for a temporary period. These grants include grants in the place of export duties on jute and jute products to the states of Assam, Bihar, Orissa and West Bengal. This grant was given for a period of 10 years from the commencement of the Constitution. These amounts were charged on the Consolidated Fund of India and were given to the states on the recommendations of the Finance Commission. Moving on to the Finance Commission. In the Article 280 of the Constitution, there is a reference of Finance Commission. It is provided as a quasi-judicial body, which means a partly or almost a judicial body. Finance Commission will be constituted by the President every 5th year or sometimes even before that. The Finance Commission will make recommendation to the President on different issues which include the distribution of the amount collected by allocating the taxes between the center and the states, and also their allocation between the states and their shares. If a particular state is provided with grants in aid by the center, the Finance Commission has to provide the recommendations to the President based on what principles they have provided the grants in aid to the states out of the Consolidated Fund of India. The Finance Commission also has to make recommendations to the President on the measures that are needed to improve the consolidated fund of the state and to supplement the resources of the panchayats and municipalities in the states on the basis of the recommendations that are made by the State Finance Commission. Also, the Finance Commission will make recommendations on any other matters that are referred to it by the President on the grounds of improving the financial conditions. Till 1960, the Finance Commission used to suggest the amounts that are paid to the states of Assam, Bihar, Orissa and West Bengal in place of allocating any share of amount that is collected every year from the export duty of jute and jute products. The Constitution of India expects the Finance Commission to be the balancing wheel to maintain the financial federalism in India. However, the role of Finance Commission as a balancing medium between the center and the state financial relationship has been undermined after the emergence of the Planning Commission, which is a non-constitutional and non-statutory body. Now we will discuss the protection of the state's interests. To protect the financial interest of the states, the Constitution provided that any particular bill that shows effect on the interest of the states or the matters related to the states, they have to be introduced in the Parliament only after the recommendation by the President. They include if any bill that imposes or alter any tax or duty in which the states are interested. Such bill has to get the recommendation from the President to be introduced into the Parliament. If any bill that plans to alter the meaning of the word agricultural income for the purpose of enhancing the provisions relating to the Indian income tax, then such bills need to get the recommendation from the President and then they ought to be introduced in the Parliament. If any bills that show an effect on how the money is being distributed to the states also should get the recommendation by the President for introduction into the Parliament, and also any bill that imposes any surcharge on a specific tax or duty for the purpose of the centre needs President's recommendation to be introduced in the Parliament. The net proceeds of a tax or duty in any area is to be certified by the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. His certificate is the final one. Borrowing by the states and the centre. The Constitution made certain provisions regarding the borrowing powers of the centre and the states. Some of them include the central government can borrow money either within the country or outside the country by keeping a guarantee of the Consolidated Fund of India. But there is certain limit for that amount which is fixed by the Parliament. Till now, no such thing has been passed by the Parliament. In the same way, a state can borrow amount within India but it cannot borrow outside India upon the security of the Consolidated Fund of India. Here also, as in the case of the centre, in the state legislature fixes the limit of amount to be borrowed. The central government can also provide funds for any state or provide guarantee to any state for the loans that are raised by the state. Any such amount that is made for the purpose of loans by the state is charged on the Consolidated Fund of India. For any state, if there is still any pending part of the loan to be paid by the centre to the state, or even with respect to the guarantee given to the state by the centre, the states cannot increase the loan amount without the permission from the centre. Moving on to intergovernmental tax immunity. There is a rule of immunity from mutual taxation in the federal form of government. Indian Constitution also follows that provision. The provision under this rule include exemption of central property from state taxation. The property of the centre is exempted from all kinds of taxes that are imposed by the state or any other authorities that are within the state such as municipalities, district boards, panchayats and others. But the Parliament has the power to remove this provision. Property includes lands, buildings, shares, everything that has a money value. It also includes movable properties and immovable properties. But the corporations or the companies that are created by the central government does not fall under this rule of tax exemption from the state or local taxes. This is because these companies comes under different legal entity. Another provision under this rule include exemption of state property or state income from central taxation. The property and income of the state is exempted from the centre being imposing taxes. The income may be derived from sovereign functions or from commercial functions, but the centre can tax the commercial operations of the state if the Parliament provides with that privilege to the centre. Again, the Parliament has the power to declare any particular trade or commerce or business as incidental to the ordinary functions of the government, and so it can be exempted from tax. Here we have to know that the property and income on local authorities situated within the state are not exempted from the central taxation. In the same way, the property or income of companies that are owned by the state can be taxed by the centre. In 1963, the Supreme Court in an order it made clear that the centre can impose custom duty on goods imported or exported by a state or an excise duty on goods produced or manufactured by a state. Now we will see the effect of emergencies on this financial power distribution between the centre and the states. Till now we learned the centre-state financial relations when the conditions in the country are normal, also the conditions within the state are normal. But when the conditions are different, that means when there is emergency, during that time the relations between the centre and the states differ. There are two types of emergencies that a nation can face. They include the national emergency and the financial emergency. National emergency. Under Article 352 of the Constitution, national emergency can be implemented within the country. During the time of national emergency, the President can alter the constitutional distribution of revenue between the center and the states. This means that the President can reduce or sometimes totally cancel the transfer of finances for tax sharing and granting aid from the center to the states. We can also say that there will be a stop for financial help to the states from the center during a national emergency. This can continue till the end of that financial year in which the national emergency can be stopped. Financial emergency. Under the Article 360 of the Constitution, a financial emergency can be declared. When there is a financial emergency going on within the country, the center can give directions to the states, which include the state has to follow specific rules that are suitable to that particular financial state or condition. The state has to reduce the salaries and pay allowances of all classes of persons who are serving in the state, that includes the High Court judges. This has been implemented during the time of COVID pandemic where the country is facing financial crisis. To address that issue, the center also implemented scheme of Ayushman Bharat, regarding which we will discuss later. Also, during the financial emergency, the state has to reserve all the money bills and other financial bills that are taken to be considered by the President. This is about the center and the state's financial relationships. I hope you enjoyed this. If so, please do like, share and comment. Also subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Have a great time.